Hi friends, this is Selujang here. Welcome to my networking channel. Hope all are doing good. And today the topic I am going to discuss about how to configure a static route via CLI in case of a Fortigate firewall. So in this architecture, I connected three Fortigate firewall, port 1, 2 and 3. So out of which the firewall 1 and 2 are connected by physical port 1 and firewall 2 and 3 are connected by physical port 2. So the firewall 1 has directly connected interfaces 192.168.1.1. Firewall 2 has two interface 1.2 and 2.1 are the connected interfaces and firewall 3 has 2.2. So what I'm going to do is first let us configure the directly connected interfaces for all these three firewall. Then the second thing I need to create a policy. In case of FortiGate firewall, we need to create a policy for port 1 to port 2 communication and port 2 to port 1. This is for communication between the different subnets. I need to create a policy. Two policies I'm going to create. One is for port 1 to port 2 and the second is for port 2 to port 1 communication. So for that I'm going to create a policy. And the third thing is I will be creating a static route to the remote destination network. So the fourth one is aware of only this network, not aware of this remote network. So I'm going to create a static route to this remote network with 1.2 as a gateway. And from firewall 3, I'll be configuring a remote network to 1.1 with 2.1 as a gateway. So these are things I'm going to do. So to make our job easier, just I've created a notepad in such a way. First we can configure the host name. So config system global set host name followed by the host name. And then for configuring the interface, go to config system interface, edit port 1. So since I'm configuring a static thing, we need to change the mode to static. Then assign a static IP, then allow access is ping, allowing the ping access. So just copy this entire thing and paste it on the first firewall. So let us take this console. Okay, go to Putty, just click OK and log in with the credentials. Admin, it is prompting for the password change. Now let us paste the configuration. Okay, edit port 1, the IP is 1.1. Okay, so now you have saved the configuration. Now let us switch to the second firewall. It has two directly interfaces. One is 1.2 for port 1 and 2.21 for port 2, right? So let us go here 1.2 and port 2 is 2.1 and the host name is port2. So it is a little bit easier, right, for configuring. Just copy the entire set of commands, copy and just paste it on the second firewall. So let us take the console of the second firewall and paste it over there. Just go to Putty, click OK and log in with the credentials. Now paste it over here. So now it is saved the configuration. Let us view the configuration. So system interface port 1 1.2 and port 2 is 2.1. So here also let us view the configuration. So system interface port 1. Okay, this is the way we can view the configuration. So now let us go to the third firewall. Okay, so let us go to third firewall and it has only one interface, that is 2.2. Okay, so let us quickly configure. So what's the command is, that is 2.2 and the port is port 2 and the host name is port3, right? That's the third firewall. So okay, just copy it and paste it on the third firewall. Okay, so we are done with the configuration for firewall 1, 2 and 3. Now let us, for testing purpose, do a ping from this 2.2 to 2.1 and 1.1 to 1.2. Let us go here, execute ping. The remote interface is 192.168.2.1. I am able to reach. And for execute ping, this is from the first firewall, ping the remote network, that is 1.2. So I'm able to reach. Okay, so now I hope you are following this. So now the second step is we will create a policy for firewall port 1 to port 2 communication and port 2 to port 1 communication. So now I'm going to show you how we can configure the policy via the command line prompt. So let us go to the intermediate middle firewall, and in this firewall I'm going to configure the two policy. The first policy from port 1 to port 2 and the second rule is from port 2 to port 1 communication. Okay, so otherwise the communication between the internetworks will not happen. Okay, so go to config firewall policy is a command. Now let us add the first rule. So edit 1, so that is for adding the first statement or the first entry. Now let us configure the policy. So there are several statements we have to add. One is we have to set the source interface, destination interface, source address, destination address. Then we have to set the schedule, then the action, and followed by the service. Okay, so these are things you have to enable. So set source interfaces port 1 and set destination interfaces port 2. Okay, and set source address. So here the source address I'm going to specify as all. So I can specify the specific source address, or we can give all. Set destination address as all, and then set the schedule if you want to schedule a specific time, or you can do schedule always, and set the service. You want to specify any ICMP service or POP service. In case I'm giving it to you all. Okay, and set action. So the action is always accept, and just save the configuration. Now let us view the first rule. Show firewall policy. Okay, click enter. So it will show the source interface, destination interface, source address, destination address, and the action is always accept, schedule is always, and set service is all. Okay, so similar way I'm going to add a second entry for port 2 to port 1 communication. Okay, so go to config firewall policy and edit to. So now let us give set source interface port 2 and set the destination interface as port 1 and set source address as all, and the set destination address as all. Then we have to set the schedule. So these are the parameters mandatory for configuring the policy in case of a FortiGate firewall. Set action is accept, and set service, let us give it as all. So we have successfully created two policy. Okay, so one is policy 1 for port 1 to port 2, and second policy for port 2 to port 1. Now let us do a ping from this firewall 1 to this 2.1. So let us see. So execute ping 192.168.2.1. So still it is not reachable. Why? Because as I told, even we have configured the policy, still we have to create a static route to the remote network. Okay, so how to create? Go here. Okay, so go to config router static. So just like Cisco, we have to set a static route. IP route static will do, right? So like you do IP route in case of Cisco. So here config router static. Then we have to set the destination network. So what does the destination network is? 192.168.2.0, right? So 192.168.2.0 followed by the mask. Then we have to create the gateway. Okay, so right. So here also we have to edit an entry. Sorry for that. Edit one. Then we have to add this. Okay, this is the first entry route I'm doing. Set DST destination network followed by the remote network IP, that is subnet IP, followed by the mask. Then we have to set the gateway. Which gateway for this? 1.2 is a gateway for reaching this remote network. So 192.168.1.2 followed by the device. So what's the device is nothing but we have to specify which port. Set device port 1. Okay, so now let us save the configuration. Similar way, from firewall 3, let us add a second route to the remote network is 192.168.1. network. Okay, so go to the firewall 3 and go to config router static, make an entry, first entry, set the destination network as 192.168.1.0 followed by the mask. Okay, followed by the mask. Then we have to set the gateway is 2.1 for reaching this remote network. Okay, so set gateway is 192.168.2.1 followed by the port detail. Interface detail is port 2, right? So port 2. Then let us save the configuration. So we have done with the configuration. We have configured the directly connected interfaces. We have created the policy from port 1 to port 2 and port 2 to port 1. Third thing, I have created a static route. So now let us do a ping from firewall 1 to firewall 3. Okay, so go to firewall 1 and do a ping. Execute ping 2.1. So I'm able to reach 2.1. How about 2.2? I'm able to reach, right? Similar way, let us go to the second, third firewall and let us now ping the remote network, that is 1.1. Okay, so let us go to the third firewall, do execute ping 192, that is the remote network I'm ping 192.168.1.2 and able to reach 1.1 also I am able to reach. Okay, so these are the things you can. So for viewing the default static route configuration, I can do show router static. Okay, show router static. It will show all the static route details for the particular firewall. Okay, so these are the things you have to keep it in mind for configuring a static route via CLI in case of Fortigate firewall. So the first thing is we have to configure the directly connected interfaces. Then the second thing we have to create a policy, and the third thing we have to create a static route to the remote network. So I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos. Thanks and have a wonderful day. Thank you.